So, hello and welcome to our Bright Stars Spotlight series. I'm Kirsten Bartlett. I'm one of the founders and managing directors of the Granted Group. And Bright Stars is our initiative of showcasing the wonderful work of our Australian researchers who happen to be women. And the purpose of telling these stories is to encourage women to continue to strive for senior appointments in research, and also to inspire young women and girls to pursue a career in research. And today, we're really proud to be launching our Spotlight interview series as part of International Women's Day for 2021. The theme for International Women's Day this year is Choose to Challenge. And the people that I'll be interviewing for our series certainly embody this principle on a daily basis. These inspiring researchers challenge the gender norms that are still hanging around and are helping to forge the path ahead for our future women researchers. So today, I'm really pleased to start our Spotlight series off by introducing you to Dr. Hanna Kurniawati. Dr. Kurniawati is an Associate Professor and Computer Science Futures Fellow at the Australian National University. She holds a PhD in Computer Science for her work in robot motion planning from the National University of Singapore, a Bachelor of Science in Computer Science from the University of Indonesia, and worked as a researcher at the University of Queensland, as well as the Singapore MIT Alliance for Research and Technology at MIT. Thank you so much for joining me today, Hanna.
My pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, it's such a pleasure to have you. So we've got a few questions to go through with you today, Hanna, and the first of them is, we would love to know a little bit more about your research, what it's all about and why it's important.
Sure. So I work on what's called the automated decision making. In particular, I look into how we can do that in the presence of uncertainty. Various types of uncertainty, from errors in sensing to, just limited information about your environment, for instance. And we apply this also to robotics, right? Perhaps in short, it can be said as that thing in robots that enable them to become smart or intelligent. So basically, we want them to be able to do things that usually we don't want to do, or it just seems to be too complicated for us to do, right? And the idea is that we try to quantify these uncertainty, these various types of uncertainties, using probability functions, and then we basically try to predict some possibilities of the future. So if they do this, what might happen? If they do that, what might happen? And once we can calculate all this very fast, we can then make some recommendations of what a human should do if they are collaborating with robots, for instance, or what the robots should do if we just put that as a control and planner for the robot system itself. And once we do that, we can sit back and send the robot somewhere else to do the things we don't want to do, like in the remote areas, and we just sit back. Or we can also make, right? So basically, I might not want to go to the deepest of the sea, for instance. I'm a bit afraid of that, so I just send the robot to do that, and I can.
Excellent. I like the idea that the robots will be doing all the things that we don't want to be doing.
Something like that.
Yes.
Or we can make the robot to be our sidekick when things becomes too complicated.
Right.
Yeah. So that's one of the things I do, for instance, in collaboration with our industry partner, is to help develop these assistive systems for helicopter pilots that are trying to do an emergency. So there's an emergency medical mission sometimes that they need to do, or a search and rescue mission. So in this kind of situation, usually the weather is not great. There's a lot of pressure on trying to find the person as quickly as possible. Once there's a person that they found, there's usually a lot of pressure because the environment is not that nice, right? It's usually in the middle of the jungle or in really bad areas. So our system can help them to quantify if this is the actions that they do, these are the decisions they make, what might happen. If the other thing is the one that they do, what might happen? And we compute them fast, and then we give them recommendations under the situation It might be better for you to bring this person to hospital A, for instance, or under the situation, you might want to go to this victim first because they're really in critical condition and you really need to get them out of that place as soon as possible.
Right. So it helps helping in the decision-making process.
Exactly, of the pilot, because the pilot needs to also be concentrating on how do I fly this so that I don't crash despite of the bad weather, right? So,
exactly, let alone making some other important decisions along the way.
Exactly, yes. Yeah. So it's from those remote areas that do things that we don't want to do to actually become our sidekick and help us in this.
So there's some really important applications then for including robotics in some of these kinds of applications.
That's correct, yeah.
To improve safety, to get optimal decision making.
Exactly.
And in fact, so that us humans can sit back and watch a bit more Netflix.
Something like that.
Very good. Excellent, Hannah. Thank you so much for explaining some more about the kind of work that you do. And it sounds like you're making great inroads into reaching some of the possibilities that we never imagined would be available to us. Absolutely. So, Hannah, tell me about what your advice would be to a young woman who is considering a career in research. What would your advice be?
Yeah. So my advice would be, this is actually the advice my junior high school teacher gave me, was that we should put our dream as high as possible so that if we fail, we are still in a good condition. So I like the last phrase that he explained why we need to put our dreams as high as possible. Right? Yeah. So what that means also to me is that don't be afraid to fail. I mean, research, that's why it's called research, because, well, we don't really know what the outcome is. So that's okay if we fail. And then what matters is that what do we learn from it? How do we figure out for the future what needs to be done better, right? Yeah. So that's the main thing I would suggest. Yeah. Right? The second one is also, it is good to find a supportive environment, supportive in a sense that I think it is good that if you can find somebody, either a mentor or your colleagues or basically people who you trust enough that you don't mind if they give you harsh criticism, because you need that actually.
Yes, you need the truth, exactly. but in a supportive environment.
Exactly, and that actually will speed up your development as well as a researcher, I think. And it's better to get harsh criticism inside rather than outside, when basically everything is just reject. Yeah, so that's the second one that I think are important. I think those are the main two things, because from there we can expand a lot, right? Don't be afraid to fail basically means that, well, if you go into meetings or if you go into this usually some conferences, for instance, don't be afraid to put yourself out there, to talk to people, to ask things, right? So those kind of things sometimes need a bit more encouragement, and I think that's going to be useful. Just don't be afraid to fail.
Yeah, absolutely. And those two things are really linked, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly.
Don't be afraid to fail, but do find yourself in an environment where you can fail, you can be supported, and then you can move to that next stage.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, wonderful. All right, Hannah, my very last question for you is, if you hadn't become a researcher, what do you think you might have done?
So I most probably open my own business.
Yeah? What kind of business?
Perhaps computer related. So when I was in junior high and senior high, I liked computer games a lot. So I actually went into computer science thinking that I can actually spend my time just
playing computer games.
So well, that was the time before there's this e-sport, right?
Yeah.
So most probably is computer related and perhaps game related.
So esports. So you would have had an esports business. I like it, Hannah. That sounds like a lot of fun. Wonderful. Very good. Well, look, Hanna, thank you so much for being part of our Bright Stars Spotlight series today. It was really lovely to talk to you, lovely to hear about, your work in robotics, the importance of that work, and also to hear some of your advice around how to support our young women and girls to become researchers as well, because we need all of these wonderful bright minds to get into the research sector and really help change the world like you are. So thank you so much, Hanna.
Thank you so much.